Part 36. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 351. Feng Zhenzi was slightly excited. What's the request? They were worried that Sun Quan would not agree. In any case, Sun Quan is Hua Shifang's younger brother and the owner of Baikou Garden. If they really break up with each other and make the relationship tense, the gain will outweigh the loss. It would be best if you can settle this matter peacefully. Sun Quan looked at their impatient faces and snorted coldly in his heart. With a serious expression on his face, he said, "Since we have decided to use a competition to determine the inheritance rights of the Divine Doctor sect, once we have the final result, don't think about going back on your word and coming up with any messy ways to prevent the successor who wins the competition from inheriting the Divine Doctor section. I'll make it clear that if the successor you choose wins against me and my senior brother and apprentice, I won't say anything and will never ask anything about the Divine Doctor sect in the future. But if my senior brother and my apprentice win, then that's okay. Please don't interfere with anything in the miracle medical sect in the future, can you do that?" Hearing what he said, Toyo Masaji hesitated for a moment. If they agree to this, if that little girl really wins, wouldn't it mean that they will completely cut off contact with the Miracle Doctor sect from now on? The other people also looked at each other, looking a little unsure for a moment. The coldness in Sun Quan's heart deepened, and he said expressionlessly, "Why don't you go discuss it first?" "Well, that's fine too." Feng Zhenzi agreed without any politeness at all. Then they went to the back room to discuss the matter. Sun Quan secretly clenched his fists, almost holding back his emotions and wanting to scold them. A bunch of shameless old people. It is also because of this reason that he has rarely returned to his master's school in recent years. Today's Heaven and Earth Alliance is no longer the original Heaven and Earth Alliance. This place is filled with worldly desires and greed, and the people in the past make him feel more and more strange. Nan Yan looked at Ji Yunmiao, his indifferent eyebrows filled with coldness. "It seems you still don't repent." Ji Yunmiao looked up at her fearlessly, and his tone became even more proud. "I didn't use the name of your disciple of the miracle doctor this time. I relied on my own strength to make my uncle and others recognize me." "On the contrary, it's you," Ji Yunmiao said with gloating mockery in his eyes. "So what if you are the apprentice of a miracle doctor? In these years, you have never appeared in the medical world, let alone made any contribution to the traditional Chinese medicine world. You will not do it at all. Certified. I've said it before, you are just luckier than me and you are under the disciple of Divine Dr. Hua. Other than that, how can you compare with me?" Ji Yunmiao didn't believe that Nan Yan's medical skills were better than hers. And she also firmly believes that her strength is far greater than that of Nan Yan, a disciple of a miracle doctor who does not live up to his name. Nan Yan was confident in her honey, so she just sneered and said, "Don't worry, there will be a time when you can clearly see the gap between us." Ji Yunmiao took a breath and couldn't maintain the expression on his face. He looked at her gloomily, as if he wanted to overwhelm Nan Yan with his eyes. Unfortunately, Nan Yan ignored her at all. This kind of person doesn't deserve to waste her energy and words talking nonsense to her. Sun Quan had no good impression of Ji Yunmiao for a long time, so he walked to Nan Yan and sat down without even looking at her. Not long after, Feng Zhenzi's apprentice Dong Kai came out and asked Ji Yunmiao to go in. It seemed that this matter made them unable to make a decision for a while. A hint of ridicule flashed across Nan Yan's eyes, but he covered it up lightly and sat next to Sun Quan. Suddenly, Sun Quan sighed quietly and said, "Yan Yan, now I understand why senior brother left the school. Senior brother is more persistent than his character, and his eyes can't tolerate sand. If he hadn't been extremely disappointed with them, how could he have been so cruel and left quietly?" Nan Yan was silent for a moment, then suggested, "Second master, how about I go to find master with third senior brother this time, and you also go with us?" "When are you going?" Sun Chan's eyes were a little bright. I want to go with you. He hasn't seen his senior brother for more than 10 years and really wants to see him again. Nan Yan, wait for another 10 days or so, until my third senior brother's body has almost recovered, and then we will go. What happened to your third senior brother? Sun Chan's reaction was a little slow. Also, how many disciples does your master have in total? The third senior brother was ill and has just been cured. He is recovering. As for my master, he has a total of 4 disciples. There are 3 senior brothers above me, but I am the only one who inherits his medical skills. The 4 of them are all direct disciples. It's just that it's different from what the master learned. The outside world said that she was the only direct disciple, but in fact, it was just because she was the disciple who learned his medical skills. Although the other 3 senior brothers also studied medicine, they only learned some superficial skills and focused on other abilities. While the 2 masters and apprentices were talking in low voices, in another room, Feng Zhenzi and the others were asking Ji Yunmiao seriously. Are you really sure that you can beat that little girl? Ji Yunmiao nodded proudly, absolutely. She paused and then said, Miracle Dr. Hua left more than 10 years ago. Even if she had been exposed to Chinese medicine earlier, she would not have been exposed to Chinese medicine until she was a teenager. She has only been exposed to Chinese medicine for a few years. But I have been studying medicine with my father and grandfather since I was 3 years old. It has been more than 20 years now. Whether it is academic qualifications or experience, I will definitely crush her. In that case, let's agree to it. Yunmiao, you must win, otherwise this divine doctor sect will have nothing to do with us in the future. Ji Yunmiao said firmly, don't worry, master, I will never let you down. Okay, let's go out. Feng Zhenzi and his group returned to the hall. Ahem, we have discussed it? Nan Yan and Sun Chan stood up again when they saw this. Sun Chan asked, what is the result of your discussion? Just do as you said, Feng Zhenzi said firmly, but I also have a request. You have another request? Sun Chan was so angry that he wanted to ask how thick their skin was. That's right, junior brother Sun, the divine doctor sect and Baiko garden complement each other. We also hope that if junior brother Sun loses, he will not be stingy and continue to supply medicinal materials to the divine doctor section. Of course, we will not let Baiko garden supply for nothing. How about buying at 50% off the market price? We are all from the same section, we can't be strangers in the future, right? Sun Chan took a deep breath slowly and said expressionlessly, of course, no matter who inherits the divine doctor sect in the future, the supply chain between Baiko garden and the divine doctor sect will not be broken. Okay, Feng Zhenzi clapped his hands, since junior brother Sun is so straightforward, we agree to your request. Nan Yan said lightly, words are not enough, sign the contract. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 352. After signing the contract, even if they want to go back on it, they have no chance. As for Feng Zhenzi, because of his trust in Ji Yunmiao, he also felt that it would be better to sign a contract. In this way, even if Hua Shifang comes back in the future, he will not be qualified to ask them to hand over the miracle doctor sect again. The 2 parties each had their own plans and quickly signed the contract. Nanyan put away one of them, and Feng Zhenji and the others put away the other. Second master, let's go. She wouldn't be impatient if she stayed in a place like this for even 1 more minute. Sun Chan's expression had not improved since then. When he heard Nan Yan say to leave, he walked out without looking back. Ji Yunmiao stared at the backs of the 2 of them with a sinister look in their eyes. After this competition, no one will dare to look down on her again. It doesn't matter if she's not the apprentice of a miracle doctor, as long as she crushes the apprentice of a miracle doctor, that's enough. Hashtag. After returning from his master's school, Sun Chan was in a gloomy mood and had no intention of returning to Baiko Garden. In the car, Sun Chan's expression softened a little, and he said earnestly, "Yan, you don't have to go to Baiko Garden these 2 days. Have a good rest and build up your energy to deal with the next competition and test." Nan Yan did not take Ji Yun Miao seriously, but was afraid that Sun Chan would be worried, so he replied obediently, "Okay, second master." Sun Chan nodded and wanted to say something, but when he saw Nan Yan's cold and flamboyant face, he felt that there was no need to tell him anything. Although they didn't get along for a long time, only a few days, Sun Chan could see Nan Yan's character. She is calm and restrained, calm and powerful, and what is even more valuable is that she has an exquisite heart with 7 orifices. Yes, if she was just an ordinary girl, how could she let her senior brother accept her as his disciple? Sun Chan was sent back to the courtyard, and Nan Yan also returned to the Qin family. Ms. Qin was enjoying the cool weather in the garden and admiring the flowers. When she saw Nan Yan coming back, her eyes suddenly lit up and she quickly got up and walked over. "Yan, why are you back so early today?" Nan Yan walked a few steps quickly and came to her side to support her. "I don't have to go to the medicine garden these days, so I came back." Ms. Qin grinned and said, "Isn't that right, Yan, you will have time to spend time with grandma in the future." Nan Yan looked at the old lady's extremely happy expression and didn't want to upset her. Thinking that she really had nothing to do these 2 days, she nodded, "Yes, I'll stay with you." Ms. Qin immediately became interested. "Let's go, grandma will take you out to play." Nan Yan, "Okay." Hashtag. After being dragged out by Ms. Qin and forced to consume all afternoon, the old lady went back to the house to sleep tiredly. Nan Yan returned to her bedroom and took a bath first. When she came out, Mr. N happened to call. "Yan, how long will you stay in the imperial capital? When will you come back?" Not sure yet. Nan Yan leaned lazily on the sofa, lowered her eyes and asked, "What's wrong, Grandpa?" "It's your grandpa. He wants to know when you will come back so that he can arrange time to take you to the first floor." The first floor is the highest organization that integrates various art systems such as the Painting Association, the Music Association, the Chess Club, and the Calligraphy Club. Even Zhong Changning, the president of the Painting Association, is one of the elders on the first floor. Lu Zhenjun is the honorary chairman of the first floor and can be regarded as the president. After Mr. N finished speaking, Mr. Lu snatched the phone from his hand and said to Nan Yan, "Yan, don't say no, even if you don't want to learn these things from Grandpa, just go on a trip or vacation with Grandpa. One trip. Zhang Nai will also go with you. For Lao Zhong's sake, he plans to take the Lin family's girl there too. You will go with him, right?" Mr. Lu's last question, really, was a very unconfident question. Nan Yan is too independent in character and has her own ideas. Once she makes a decision, it's hard to get her to change it. Even if he is her grandfather, she doesn't seem to have any privileges. After hearing Lu Zhenjian's words, Nan Yan pinched his eyebrows and said, "Okay. Anyway, it's just 1 day, so she should try her best to spare it. However, there is a day left and a day right, and when added up day by day, a lot of time is wasted. The competition on the Divine Doctor sect is over. I took the time to participate in the computer competition, meet with the Traditional Chinese Medicine Alliance, go to Tiangxialu, and then go to Shenangjia as soon as possible with my third senior brother. After returning from Shenangjia, if nothing happens, she will go to country M." Mr. Lu was very happy when he heard Nan Yan agreed. He said a few words with a smile before returning the phone to Mr. N. Mr. N curled his lips, then called and lovingly told Nan Yan to take care of herself outside. Nan Yan was always patient with the elderly, and it was already more than 10 minutes before she hung up the phone. Maintaining one position for a long time made her a little tired. She put down the phone and stretched hard. As a result, one exerted too much force and cramped again. Dong dong dong. There was a rhythmic knock on the door. Nan Yan frowned, sat up as straight as possible, put his hand on his back, covered the cramped and painful area, and said, "Come in." The door opened and Qin Lu controlled the wheelchair to come in. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Nan Yan making some unnatural movements and frowning, which made him a little worried. He quickly controlled the wheelchair and turned to her side. "Yan Yan, what's wrong? Where do you feel uncomfortable?" When Nan Yan saw Qin Lu coming in, he lay back on the sofa without a trace, bit his lip, and said speechlessly, "I have cramps. Maybe she has been exercising too much recently, which has caused the calcium in her body to not keep up. This body is really too weak. She has been recuperating for several months, but it is still far from her original body." Qin Lu frowned and reached out to help her up. "Where?" Nan Yan said weakly, "The back." Qin Lu responded in a low voice, and his warm big hand touched her back and gently rubbed her back. The strength was not too big or too small, plus the warmth of his palm, which gradually relieved the pain in Nan Yan's part due to cramps. Nan Yan half lying on the sofa, squinting comfortably. In the hazy vision, the serious and gentle face of Qin De Lao looked even more charming. Really, damn charming. Some inappropriate thoughts, some of which came out uncontrollably, made her look at him with more and more blurred eyes, and her fair face was slowly filled with a layer of seductive color. Qin Lu lowered his eyes slightly, his gentle eyes almost made people drown in his gaze, and asked in a gentle voice, "Does it still hurt?" Nan Yan was wandering in the sky, her eyes only saw his sexy thin lips opening and closing, and she didn't hear clearly what he said at all. There was only one thought in her mind, "I want to kiss." But this posture definitely can't kiss. She reached out her hand and touched his thin lips. When Qin Lu's lips were touched by a soft and cool touch, his body shook. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 353. When Qin Lu put a touch of softness and warmth on his lips, his body trembled, and the look in his eyes suddenly became deep and thick as ink. He opened his lips slightly and nibbled on her soft fingertips. Nan Yan suddenly felt a firework exploding in his mind. He took his hand back like an electric shock. His normally clear and cold eyes were now tinged with red. He looked away as if to escape, not daring to look at him. She didn't know what was wrong with her to do such a thing. Yan Yan. Qin Lu's voice was extremely hoarse, with unspeakable desire, and his palms were pressed tightly against her back. Nan Yan couldn't help but shudder because of the heat in his palms. Nan Yan was already confused by him. Hearing his sultry tone, she simply stopped doing nothing, propped her arms on the sofa, and stretched out her upper body. The pure and charming face magnified in Qin Lu's eyes, but he did not make any move, staring straight at her with a pair of black eyes. Seems to want to see what she wants to do. Nan Yan was getting closer and closer to him, and their breaths were ambiguously intertwined. It was so close, but Nan Yan flinched. Well, we can't take advantage of others' danger. Boss Qin is injured now, so we should wait until he recovers to take advantage of him. Nan Yan calmly found an excuse for himself, then blinked, suppressed the impulse in his heart, and stepped back. Qin Lu narrowed his eyes and suddenly reached out to grab her waist, causing her body that was about to retreat to fall into his arms. Nan Yan's eyes flashed with panic. In her desperation, she still remembered that Qin Lu's legs were injured and could not bear the sudden pressure she put on her. She quickly put her hands on the handles of the wheelchair to avoid supporting his legs. Qin Lu held Nan Yan, his hands did not move randomly, he just held her waist, his eyes like an abyss locked her in like a net. Little girl, why don't you continue? Just now, he was even expecting the little girl to take the initiative to give her a sweet kiss. But at the last moment, she simply backed down, causing him to be excited and looking forward to it for a long time in vain. Nan Yan was exposed, so she didn't hesitate much, but she was still a little shy in this posture. She bit her lower lip, suppressed her wildly beating heart, and said innocently, "I see that your legs and feet are not good, so I don't want to take advantage of you." Qin Lu's breath froze, and then she laughed angrily. He grinned at his teeth, wanting to bite her red lips. However, he couldn't bear it. He resisted the urge to kiss her hard and said hoarsely, "Yan Yan, after my brother's leg heals, how do you want to take advantage?" Nan Yan. This kind of thing should be thought of in the mind, not spoken out. She adjusted her posture, tried to distance herself from him, smiled, and deliberately teased him, "Those things you will know when you get better." Qin Lu. The little girl learned badly. "Brother, let go, I want to get up." Qin Lu realized that if this posture continued, he might lose control at any time, so he stopped holding her and letting her get up. After Nan Yan sat down, Qin Lu looked at her and asked, "Does it still hurt?" Huh? Nan Yan didn't react for a moment. What was he asking? What does it hurt? If it hurts, it's his legs that hurt. He didn't care about the injury on his leg, and he made such a big movement. Although she held on in time, it would still hurt if he moved his leg. Back, cramped place. Qin Lu's hand touched her back again. This time he was very gentlemanly. He just pointed at her back and made no other movements. "Never mind." Nan Yan sighed, "It seems that just drinking milk every day is not enough. The amount of calcium ingested is not enough for the body to consume. I will add some health soup to drink in the future." As a disciple of a miracle doctor, it would be a bit unjustifiable if his body could not be properly regulated. If it were any normal person's body, she would have recovered a long time ago if she had taken care of it herself. It's a pity that the original owner's body was severely injured, and his foundation was damaged before. It's pretty good that he was brought up like this. It's just impossible to return to her original physical fitness. Qin Lu rubbed her head and said, "Whatever you want to eat, just ask and let the kitchen prepare it for you." Hashtag. After Qin Lu came out of Nan Yan's room, he held his forehead helplessly. His self-control in front of the little girl seemed to be getting worse and worse. Some thoughts that break through the ground will always pop up uncontrollably. But, he can't do it. Just be patient, there is still 1 year left. In the room, Nan Yan looked in the direction of the door with some confusion. It took him a while to come back to his senses and rub his cheeks. Well, compared to the usual normal body temperature, it is much higher today. Really useless. She didn't know that she was so timid. Perhaps, because the other party is Qin Lu? Rubbing his brows, Nan Yanzu pulled on his slippers, took out his notebook from the bedroom, sat on the sofa again, and checked some things. Clicking on the social networking page of Western academic circles, the news that came into view made Nan Yan's aura feel a little colder. Shishijan's team begins mass production of T-1 reagent. He actually developed the correct formula for the T-1 reagent, and the success rate was enough to support his mass production. Lan Yan stared at the things on the page with cold eyes. Shishkin. He can't be proud for long. Hashtag. Country M. Shishkin has been very happy recently, and he looks much better than before, when he was depressed and hysterical. Although he still failed to successfully develop T-2 to report to the president, mass production of T-1 finally solved his urgent problem. After seeing the improved T-1 reagent, the president gave him more time to study and allocated a considerable amount of funds. Shishkin once again became a celebrity in the scientific research community. Overnight, he enjoyed the honor and high treatment he was given when he took the T-2 developed by Nanyang to the president to seek credit. After dealing with this wave of reporters, Shishkin was about to drink some wine to celebrate himself, when his assistant hurried in and whispered, "Director, there is a mysterious guest outside who wants to see you." "What guest?" Shishkin frowned. "He refuses to reveal his identity." "Yes. He also said that he has something very confidential to tell you, about what you care about most." After the assistant finished speaking, he asked, "Do you want to see him?" Shishkin hesitated for a moment. He originally wanted to ignore the man, but inexplicably felt that perhaps the appearance of this man would bring him unexpected clues. He waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "Then let him in." "Okay, director." The assistant went outside to invite him in. Shishkin looked at the wine in his hand and put it down temporarily, preparing to open it after he left. Not long after, the assistant came in with a man in a black suit with a gloomy expression. "Hello, Mr. Shishkin." Warm Ti. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 354. Not long after, the assistant came in with a man wearing a black formal suit and a gloomy expression. "Hello, Mr. Shishkin." Holt walked up to Shishkin and bowed slightly to him with a calm expression. "Hello." Shishkin stood up and said politely. Most of the people he comes into contact with are people of high status, and the people who come to him are basically either rich or noble. The man in front of me didn't seem like an ordinary person. "Excuse me, sir, who are you?" Holt smiled mysteriously. "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that I have news that Mr. Shishkin is very concerned about. I wonder if Mr. Shishkin would like to talk to me alone." Shishkin thought for a moment and then nodded. "Please come this way." The two of them arrived in a small reception room. After entering, Shishkin closed the door himself, walked to Holt, and the two sat down facing each other. "Can we talk now?" Professor Yun Ziun, a scientific research professor from China, Mr. 11 Shijin should know him. Of course 11 Shijin nodded. Yunzi's achievements in scientific research have long been recognized internationally. She has made great contributions to world scientific research. Unfortunately, I heard some time ago that her body has completely collapsed and she may not have a month or two to live. Shishkin's tone of voice was a bit sad. But it's just a show on the surface. He wished that all the scientists who had long become famous internationally would die, so that his status would become even higher. Holt curled his lips and said, "She's fine." "Okay. Impossible." Shishkin looked in disbelief. Yunzi's body was subjected to experiments for a long time, and his body absorbed too many toxic substances, causing the body's various functions to decline, making it impossible to get better. "It's true." Holt looked directly at Shishkin, "and it's a girl named Nanyang. She was cured." Zishijin stood up suddenly. "Tell me again, what is the name of the person who cured Yunzi?" "Nanyang. His name is exactly the same as your previous apprentice." Holt's words made Shishkin's expression change drastically. "Nanyang. She is long dead. He killed her with his own hands, inserted a knife into her heart artery, and set fire to the laboratory. She has been dead for a long time and her body has been burned to carbon. How can she still be alive?" Over in China, duplicate names are very common. That Nanyang and his apprentice Nanyang are definitely not the same person. But if you can make a person whose body organs have failed and reach the end of his life get better, you must definitely use genetic medicine. Shishkin suddenly reacted. In Yunzi's situation, except for the T-2 reagent, ordinary drugs have no effect on her. If so, what about the T-2 that has no choice but to be weaved in the cloud? He had to find out who the man named Nanyang was. Holt brought the words and retreated. The rest depends on what Shishkin does. He also wanted to see how many things could be found. #. 3 days later, it was time for the agreed-upon test of medical skills. The location is at the Divine Doctor Gate. Many of the doctors in the Divine Medical Sect studied medicine with Hua Shifeng, and then stayed here to support the Divine Medical Sect. They had heard that Divine Doctor Hua's apprentice had returned to China, and they were still looking forward to meeting Nan Yan. However, as elders, they certainly cannot take the initiative to see Nan Yan. Both emotionally and rationally, Nan Yan should be the one to see them. But after waiting for several days, they didn't even see anyone. I already have opinions on Nan Yan. Later, Ji Yunmiao appeared, and she won their recognition with her strength. So now they favor Ji Yunmiao instead of Nan Yan, the real disciple of the miracle doctor. In order to prevent Sun Quan and Nan Yan from cheating and regretting after losing, Feng Zhenzi and the others specially called several senior Chinese doctors from the Traditional Chinese Medicine Association who were influential in the traditional Chinese medicine community. Tao Qingming happened to be coming to the imperial capital to find Nan Yan, but he was called here in confusion. After sitting here, he learned from other people why the people from the Divine Doctor sect called him here. Someone actually dares to compete with Yanyan for the inheritance rights of the Miraculous Doctors section. The managers of the Divine Doctor sect actually agreed to this kind of competition. Tao Qingming only felt ridiculous. As Yanyan is the only disciple of Divine Doctor Hua, it is right for her to inherit the sect of miracle doctors founded by Divine Doctor Hua, but they want someone else to inherit it. They are really confused. Tao Qingming's face darkened, and he only gave a perfunctory consent to those who came up to greet him, and didn't even want to say anything to them. Ji Yunmiao had already arrived first. Toyo Meiseiji was talking to her. She has returned to the proud state when she was sought after abroad, with a superior smile on her face. Don't worry, today's competition is over, the Divine Doctor sect is ours. After hearing her confident and conceited speech, Toyo Masaharu was affected by her emotions and nodded repeatedly. Tao Qingming was sitting very close to them, and he could clearly hear the conversation between the two. He clenched his fists and angrily wanted to argue with them. At this time, a car stopped at the door of the Divine Doctor Gate. The car door opened and Nan Yan got out of the car. Then came Sun Quan. Master and disciple entered the Miraculous Doctor's door together. This was the first time Nan Yan came here since he knew about the existence of the Divine Doctor sect. After entering the room, she took a quick look and then frowned. Sun Quan saw her expression and asked with a smile, "Yan Yan, are you disappointed?" "I am indeed disappointed," Nan Yan said without any mercy. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that the Divine Doctor sect he founded would become like this." Nan Yan's words stirred up a hornet's nest. "All the people in the Divine Doctor sect quit." "What are you talking about? Even if you are the direct disciple of Hua Shinai, you can't slander Shinai sect at will. We have worked hard to maintain the reputation of Shinai section. You, a little girl, don't know how to thank us for our hard work over the years, but you just start to criticize us. What qualifications do you have to say the word disappointment? Tell me, how did Shinai sect disappoint you? If you can't say 1, 2, 3 things today, then you will leave. Shinai sect will not allow you to enter. Since you look down on Shinai sect, we think you are not worthy of inheriting Shinai section." Ji Yunmiao gloated as Nan Yan was accused by the people of Shinai sect, with a sneer in his eyes. She offended the people of Shinai sect as soon as she came. Even if she was the apprentice of Shinai, she would probably be hated by them. Unexpectedly, Nan Yan had just arrived, and she was one step closer to becoming the successor of Shinai sect. Sun Quan looked a little worried on the side, afraid that Nan Yan could not handle such a situation. Nan Yan's face was cold, and facing the siege and accusations, her aura became stronger. "You guys have really brought shame upon my master. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss." Author, Junanan. Chapter 355. Nan Yan's face was cold, and facing the siege and accusations, her aura became stronger. She snorted coldly, "You really lost my master's face. What did you say?" Not to mention these young Chinese medicine practitioners were angry, even several old Chinese medicine practitioners of the same age as Sun Quan were angry. Several old Chinese medicine practitioners from the Chinese Medicine Alliance who were called to be witnesses could not help shaking their heads when they heard Nan Yan say this. How can the disciple of divine Dr. Hua speak like this? This is too inappropriate. The divine doctor sect is indeed not as famous as when divine Dr. Hua was here in recent years, but it is still good after all, and it does not fall short of his status. Alas, if divine Dr. Hua had not left quietly, perhaps the divine doctor sect would have developed better. President Tao, what do you think? Tao Qingming said calmly, I think that since Yanyan said this, she has her reasons for saying so. Listen to the reasons first, and it is not too late for you to make comments. The great elder of the divine doctor sect had a serious face and said in a cold voice. Little girl, even if you are the disciple of Elder Hua, if you can't give us an explanation today, there is no need to compete today. We will not let a person who hates the divine doctor sect is here to inherit the divine doctor sect. It is true that the divine doctor sect was founded by Elder Hua, but he left quietly more than 10 years ago without any explanation or statement. He abandoned the divine doctor sect himself. We supported the divine doctor sect after he left. The divine doctor sect is no longer just Elder Hua's divine doctor sect. Before you came, we always respected Elder Hua and waited for him to come back, but since you came back, you have never come to see the divine doctor sect once in such a long time. You come here for the first time today, and you say such treasonous words. You are not worthy of being the successor of the divine doctor sect. The elder spoke sternly, and his words shut up the die-hard fans of divine Dr. Hua who originally wanted to speak for Nan Yan. They respected divine Dr. Hua, and had no feelings for his apprentice, who they had never met. And her words were really unpleasant, making them not want to speak for her. If you want to know why I'm disappointed, then you can look back at my master's handwritten inscription. The interior decoration of the divine doctor sect is very luxurious, with modern luxury furniture everywhere, and even an inconspicuous ornament is worth a lot of money. A vase of flowers on the desk is worth more than 3 million, and the whole expression is just one word, rich. The only thing that doesn't match this luxurious style is the handwritten inscription of Nian Hua Shifang after he founded the divine doctor sect. Save the dying and the wounded. This is his original intention to create the divine doctor sect. He wanted to treat those who were tortured by illness. However, the furnishings in this room made this handwritten inscription seem like a joke. They are still maintaining the divine doctor sect and letting it continue to exist. However, they violated his original intention, ignored the suffering of ordinary people, and only treated powerful people. The divine doctor sect has become their way to make money, and it has completely decayed inside. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the handwritten inscription. Even Tao Qingming and his friends were no exception. It was a piece of calligraphy that had always existed, but after Nan Yan said this, they were like they were looking at it for the first time. A doctor's heart is to save the dying and the wounded, and a benevolent person is wise. This is what Hua Shifang wanted to express. But they only regarded his calligraphy as a facade of the divine doctor sect. Nan Yan spoke word by word, coldly, I would like to ask you, looking at the master's inscription every day, have you ever reflected on it or felt ashamed? When I first saw it, I thought I was entering a treasure house. It looks like a medical clinic. I am very glad that the master has not come back. Otherwise, if he saw this, he would probably take this handwritten inscription away from here and no longer recognize that this is the divine doctor sect he founded. Sun Quan and Tao Qingming could not help but nod their heads repeatedly. Especially Tao Qingming, who understood Nan Yan's anger the most at this time. Because he was tired of the Chinese Medicine Alliance becoming a utilitarian place, and he was unable to change the gradually corrupt situation, so he had no choice but to leave the imperial capital and go to Jinqing to work as the director of the Chinese medicine hospital in the first hospital. He guessed that the reason why Dr. Hua retired was probably because the development of the Divine Doctor sect went against his original intention, so he had no choice but to leave. Nan Yan's words made many people feel ashamed. However, more people did not think they were wrong. Then, according to your idea, we should treat patients for free and not charge for consultation fees. Are we going to live on poverty? We didn't steal or rob these things. They were given to us voluntarily by patients to express their gratitude for curing their diseases and letting them regain health. How can we refuse their gratitude? You are so noble. How many people have you saved? You save people with your own money. Do you even pay for the medicine? Do you dare to say that you have never charged patients for consultation fees? We make money by medical skills, and others make money by working. What's the difference? We are all for making ourselves better. Don't make excuses for your greed. Nan Yan's angry words made them shut up. They looked at her in shock. They actually felt a strong sense of shock from her. Is this really a girl with such aura? Sun Chan couldn't help but feel relieved. My senior brother finally has a successor. No, Nan Yan is also his disciple, so he has a successor. His disciple was so domineering that he said what he had always wanted to say but had never said. It was probably because of his senior brother's departure that he felt sad, so he was unwilling to care about these worldly things and would rather soak in the medicinal fields every day. After training Nan Yan, he would also hide in Chenangjia and spend the rest of his life leisurely with his senior brother. Stop talking nonsense. How do you want to compete and how do you want to assess? Just ask questions and I will continue. Nan Yan had a very bad impression of the Divine Doctor section. Her patience had run out and she didn't want to waste any more time. After she took over the Divine Doctor sect, the first thing she did was to rectify the atmosphere here. The elders' dislike for Nan Yan had reached a certain level. Without Feng Zhenzi saying anything, he secretly decided in his heart that Nan Yan must not be allowed to inherit the Divine Doctor sect. Otherwise, with her strong personality, the Divine Doctor sect might be ruined by her. Then we will start with the first item, the medical skills competition. Only the winner will be eligible to enter the second assessment. You and Ji Yun Miao come with me to the ward. Sun Chan patted Nan Yan's shoulder. Yan Yan, come on. Second master, I will. Ji Yun Miao deliberately walked to Nan Yan's side and lowered his voice. Nan Yan, if I were you, I would not continue this competition. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 356. Ji Yun Miao deliberately walked to Nan Yan and lowered her voice. Nan Yan, if I were you, I would not continue this competition. If you offend the Divine Doctor sect, you will never be recognized by them and pass their assessment. It would be a waste of effort to compete again. Ji Yun Miao was very proud and had long determined that the successor of the Divine Doctor sect would definitely fall into her hands. Nan Yan raised her eyelids and looked at her coldly. Get lost. Ji Yun Miao's proud expression suddenly froze, and her face suddenly turned red and blue. She gritted her teeth angrily and glared at Nan Yan fiercely, then took a big step and walked in. Tao Qingming took this opportunity to walk to her side. Nan Yan saw him before, but because it was not convenient, she did not greet him. Seeing him coming, she nodded to him politely. Yan Yan, don't be nervous. With your strength, you will definitely win. Tao Qingming patted Nan Yan's arm. We must seize the inheritance of the Divine Doctor section. We can't let them ruin the reputation of Divine Doctor Hua again. Nan Yan's tone was slightly heavy, and her eyes were far away. I know. She naturally couldn't give up her master's hard work. It would be fine if she didn't know, but now that she knows, she must take it back. Tao Qingming nodded with relief, and then clenched his fist. Yan Yan, come on. Yeah. Tao Qingming looked at Sun Quan, who was accompanying Nan Yan, and took the initiative to say, hello, old son, you are here too. It's about my senior brother's inheritance, how can I not come? Sun Quan knew Tao Qingming, and seeing that Tao Qingming had such a close relationship with Nan Yan, he naturally treated him more politely. The two followed Nan Yan and talked in a low voice. The elder took people to a ward. There were 6 patients with difficult and complicated diseases in the ward. The Divine Doctor sect had brought them from all over the country for this competition. The 6 of them were the tools for Nan Yan and Ji Yunmiao in the first round of the competition. The elder pointed at the 6 patients and said to Nan Yan and Ji Yunmiao, Chinese medicine emphasizes conditioning and treating the root cause, so 1 or 2 treatments will not be effective. So in order to better allow you two to prove your medical skills, we will use 7 days as a course of treatment, and use the effect of the 7th day of treatment as a judgment to prove whose medical skills are better. To ensure fairness, you two choose the patients yourself. He really didn't like Nan Yan, but in front of so many people, and with Sun Quan here, he certainly couldn't blatantly favor Ji Yunmiao. At least it should appear fair on the surface, and it won't be too late to use tricks in private. Nan Yan first took the pulse of the 6 patients one by one to determine their conditions. Ji Yunmiao did the same as her, taking the pulse first, so that he had a bottom line in his mind, and then it would be easier to choose patients with relatively mild symptoms. After the 2 of them finished taking the pulse, the elder asked, who will choose first? Ji Yunmiao wanted to choose first, so she took the initiative to say, I'll go first. After that, she turned her head to look at Nan Yan and said, in fact, the conditions of these patients are quite complicated. If you want to choose first, it's fine. I don't care. She said all the words back and forth, and pretended to be a white lotus before asking Nan Yan. This face made Nan Yan sick. She replied with a cold face, you choose. For her, there is no difference between choosing first and choosing later. No matter whether Ji Yunmiao can cure these 6 people in the end, since she met them, she will make them healed. She dare not forget the master's teachings for a day. Do your best to save the dying and the wounded within your ability. Ji Yunmiao decisively picked 3 patients whose symptoms she felt were relatively simple when she took the pulse before. The remaining 3, needless to say, automatically belonged to Nan Yan. Please, save us. I don't want to die yet. As long as you can save me, I am willing to work like a cow and a horse to repay you. Miss, are you the apprentice of Divine Dr. Hua? Please, save us. The 6 patients are willing to be tools, and their starting point is to make their bodies better. Nan Yan's expression moved slightly, don't worry, I will cure you. Thank you, thank you. The patients on Ji Yunmiao's side also begged in various ways. And she had a fake smile on her face and comforted them perfunctorily. Most of these people are ordinary people without money, which can be seen from their clothes. Ji Yunmiao is not interested in talking too much to them, but she also uses all her skills to cure them. After all, their lives are related to whether she can become the legitimate successor of the Divine Doctor sect. She must do her best. After the patients are selected, they can't be treated immediately. The elder asked the person who will be the referee next to take the pulse of the 6 people and understand their conditions first. This way, we can compare the improvement after a week. Tao Qingming was not among the witnesses, but he took the initiative to follow up on the competition, so he joined in. Several old Chinese medicine practitioners from the Chinese Medicine Alliance, plus several elders from the Divine Doctor sect, a total of 8 people, recorded the symptoms of 6 patients one by one and filed them. Afterwards, Nan Yan and Ji Yunmiao each took 3 patients and left the Divine Doctor sect. Before leaving, The elder also specifically instructed that Western medicine should not be used, and pure Chinese medicine treatment should be used. And in order to supervise and prevent them from secretly using Western medicine, each person has 2 people to supervise them. During this week, they eat and live together with the patients. After Nan Yan left, Feng Zhenzi stayed in the Divine Doctor sect. He walked to the side of the elder, gave him a wink, and the 2 entered an empty room together. "Elder, we can't let Nan Yan win this competition." Feng Zhenzi was still worried that something might happen. He had seen Ji Yunmiao's medical skills and was very confident in her medical skills. But it's better to be safe than sorry. What if Nan Yan's medical skills are also very good? After all, she is still Hua Shifang's personal disciple, and she is allowed to become a master. Her talent in medical skills must be good. Among those patients, the 3 with relatively mild symptoms were all chosen by Ji Yunmiao. She has already taken a big advantage. Nan Yan is an 18-year-old girl. I guess she is just arrogant and fearless. The elder didn't like Nan Yan at all, and he looked annoyed when he mentioned her. We have seen Ji Yunmiao's medical skills with our own eyes. According to her ability, there should be no mistakes. That's what I said, but before the result comes out, anything is possible. Feng Zhenzi's eyes darkened a little. The Divine Doctor sect is so important to us, we should choose a foolproof method to help Ji Yunmiao win the competition. The elder raised his eyes and lowered his voice unconsciously. What method? Feng Zhenzi waved to the elder, asked him to come closer, and then whispered a few words in his ear. How about this method? The elder nodded. I think it's feasible. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 357. Nan Yan placed the 3 patients in Sun Chan's courtyard. She certainly couldn't take the patients to the Qin family. Relatively speaking, Sun Chan's side was the best choice. Although Tao Qingming also said that people could be brought to his house, it was not suitable there. It was more convenient to use medicinal materials here in Sun Chan. As for the 2 elders who came with him to supervise, they were also placed in the courtyard. Old Tao, please make arrangements. I can meet with the Chinese medicine practitioners in the Chinese Medicine Alliance on a suitable day in the next few days. She has been mainly treating the 3 people in recent days, but the treatment does not take up much of her time, so she is still free. It happened that while Tao Qingming was here, she would solve the things she promised one by one. Tao Qingming wanted to say that he would let her take care of the competition first. Then he thought of the conditions of the 3 patients he felt when he took their pulses before, and he relaxed his nerves again. The symptoms of the 3 patients were much lighter than those of Old Cheng and Professor Yun Ziun. Nan Yan could cure the diseases of Old Cheng and Professor Yun, so how could she not cure them? Thinking of this, Tao Qingming nodded. Okay, I'll tell the old guys in the group that you've actually met a few of them today. I'll introduce them to you when we meet. Nan Yan responded, if you have something to do, go and do it first. If not, I'm going to give them their first treatment now. You can stay and watch. Tao Qingming smiled and said, what can I do? Of course I'll stay and watch. Even he would learn something from watching Nan Yan treat illnesses. After Sun Chan came back, he was busy arranging accommodation for the 3 patients. When he was done, he came over. Yan, check what herbs are needed later. I'll go to Baiko Garden to get them. Okay, second master, you and Tao Lao come together. The other 2 elders of the Divine Doctor sect hurried over to see them without Nan Yan's call. The 3 patients had different symptoms. Nan Yan would give acupuncture to those who could use it first, and those who couldn't use acupuncture could only wait for the medicine. After the treatment, it was already 2 hours later. Then Nan Yan wrote 3 prescriptions and handed them to Sun Chan. Second master, these are the medicines needed for treatment. The method of decocting the medicine and the dosage are all here. Take them once in the morning and evening every day. Sun Quan took a look at the 3 prescriptions and showed them to Tao Qingming as well. He waited for him to finish reading them before folding them and putting them in his pocket. If you have other things to do, go and do them first. Leave the decocting and feeding of the medicine to me. There will be no mistakes. Nan Yan told Sun Quan in advance that there would be a competition in her school in 2 days. She was the team leader and had to participate. So she couldn't stay here all the time and watch over the 3 patients. He could do this kind of small thing for her. The 2 elders of the Divine Doctor sect looked at each other and said, "Elder son, this is against the rules. The competition requires Nan Yan and Ji Yunmiao to compete alone, and no one else is allowed to interfere. What's against the rules?" Yan Yan was diagnosed and prescribed by one person. Who interfered in this process? Elder frowned and said, "She should also boil the medicine by herself." Sun Quan said coldly, "Boil the medicine is the first lesson for learning Chinese medicine. You still need to test such basic skills. Since you think it's against the rules for me to boil the medicine, then let my medicine apprentice do it. He is about the same age as Yan Yan, so it should be okay, right?" The 2 elders saw that Sun Quan's face was obviously unhappy, and they didn't dare to say no again, so they could only agree vaguely. If Nan Yan didn't have to go and couldn't get away, she wouldn't have to bother Sun Quan. Originally, she heard the 2 elders say no righteously, and she was considering whether she should get up early to boil the medicine on the day of the competition. After hearing the 2 elders give in, she didn't mention it again. Let the 2 elders take care of the 3 patients. Nan Yan, Sun Quan, and Tao Qingming go to Baikou Garden to get medicine. Tao Qingming had never been to Baikou Garden, and he was interested in the most mysterious Chinese medicine planting base in China. In addition, he had nothing to do, so he took the opportunity to go there once while Nan Yan was there. After getting the herbs from Baikou Garden, Nan Yan made the first batch of medicine by herself, just to let the 2 elders see her basic skills in decocting medicine. Hashtag. Nan Yan stayed in the courtyard until 3 or 4 in the afternoon before she left. Tao Qingming went with her and got in her car. "Tao Lao, where are you going?" Nan Yan drove herself today, buckled her seat belt, and turned around to ask. Tao Qingming said, "Just take me to Cheng's house." "Okay." Nan Yan started the car, waited for it to start, turned the steering wheel and stepped on the accelerator, and slid smoothly onto the road. It takes about an hour to get from the courtyard to Cheng's house. There was an old man in the car, so Nan Yan drove more steadily and did not drive fast. She was driving normally, but soon Nan Yan found something wrong. There was a car following her. There was more than one. 2 black Land Rovers were following her car, one on the left and one on the right, chasing her very closely. At this time, there were not many cars on the road, which was suitable for racing. "Mr. Tao, hold on to your seat belts and close your eyes." Huh. Tao Qingming was a little confused for a moment. "Someone is following us, I want to get rid of them." Tao Qingming's expression became serious. "Who are they? Will they be dangerous?" "Yan Yan, how about we call the police?" "No, they won't be able to catch up even if we call the police, we still have to rely on ourselves." Nan Yan said in a steady tone, "Just hold on, and leave the rest to me." Oh, Tao Qingming quickly followed Nan Yan's instructions and grabbed the seat belt tightly, but he did not close his eyes, but turned his head to look back. When he was ready, Nan Yan suddenly accelerated. The car, which was originally traveling at a constant speed of 50 km per hour, reached a speed of more than 100 km in 3 seconds. And the speed was still increasing. Tao Qingming felt that his heart was about to jump out. The strong pushback made him lean back on the seat, his breathing was a little unsmooth, and his brain seemed to have lost its ability to function for a while. The 2 Land Rovers saw that Nan Yan had discovered them and accelerated, so they accelerated together and hurried to catch up. Nan Yan's speed was too fast, and they had already fallen behind, and they could not catch up at all if they wanted to catch up. 5 minutes later, they found that they had lost her. The drivers of the two cars started talking via Bluetooth. "We've lost the person, what should we do now?" "Then we'll wait for her in that courtyard." "Okay." The two cars slowly slowed down, turned around at the next intersection, and drove back. On the other side, after Nan Yan got rid of the two of them, she pulled over at an intersection. Tao Qingming unbuckled his seat belt with difficulty, then ran to the trash can tremblingly and vomited violently. Nan Yan turned on her laptop and quickly hacked into the surveillance along the highway to check where the two cars went. A few minutes later, she found the location of the two cars and saw that they went directly back to Sun Chan's side. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 358. Nan Yan turned on her laptop and quickly hacked into the surveillance along the highway to check where the two cars were going. A few minutes later, she found the location of the two cars. The direction they were driving in was Sun Chan's residence. Who are they? Are they from the Master's sect? Or the Divine Doctor's sect? Because she had never met them before, Nan Yan didn't know their purpose for the time being, and she had to figure it out first. But protecting Sun Chan and the people in the courtyard is the most important thing at the moment. Nan Yan had no one to use in the capital, so naturally, she thought of Qin Lu. She picked up her phone and called Qin Lu. "Brother, lend me a few people." Qin Lu was stunned for a moment, then reacted, "What are you going to do?" He had to ask clearly about the purpose before he could determine which people to send over. "Protect people." Qin Lu's originally indifferent expression became solemn. "What's going on?" Nan Yan didn't hide it from Qin Lu, and told him again that someone was following her and went to Sun Chan's place. Qin Lu's eyes darkened slightly, and he whispered, "I will send someone to protect the safety of Mr. Sun and the others, but Yan Yan, you have to come back as soon as possible." "I know." Qin Lu was still worried. "Where are you?" "I'll send someone to pick you up." Nan Yan said softly, "No need, I'll send Mr. Tao back and return to the manor immediately." "Then be careful, and contact me in time if you have any problems." "Okay." Nan Yan hung up the phone, took a bottle of mineral water from the car, and went to Tao Qingming. Tao Qingming vomited all over the place, almost vomiting everything in his stomach, and was still retching. Nan Yan looked at his distorted and painful appearance, and felt a little sorry. She unscrewed the mineral water and handed it over, apologetically saying, "Mr. Tao, drink some water." Mr. Tao took the water, rinsed his mouth first, and then drank several gulps, and his condition was better. "Mr. Tao, how do you feel? How about I give you 2 injections?" "It's okay." Tao Qingming waved his hand weakly, "I'm not that bad, I just need to rest." "Get in the car first, I want to take you back." Tao Qingming drank a few more sips of water, his legs weak as he wanted to go back to the car. Nan Yan saw that his legs were trembling, so she went over to support him. When driving again, Nan Yan's speed was much more stable. Tao Qingming was originally sitting in the car, and his nerves were tense. The previous speeding brought him a lot of psychological shadows. But when he saw the car moving slowly, he relaxed a little. The car stopped at Longkai Villa. After Tao Qingming got off the car, he originally planned to invite Nan Yan to sit in. But thinking that Nan Yan would definitely check the people who followed her, he didn't mention it, and told her to be careful. #. On the way back, Nan Yan received a call from Qin Lu. "Yan Yan, Qin Ye has taken people to Old Sun's place. Do you want to come back directly or go over there to take a look?" After such a long time of getting along, Qin Lu has understood Nan Yan's temper. She will not let the people she cares about be in danger. The person who followed her has not yet figured out his identity, and he is secretly ambushing at Sun Chan's place. it is impossible for her not to investigate it personally. Sure enough, after Qin Lu's voice fell, he heard Nan Yan say lightly, "Go there, otherwise I will be worried." "Brother, you let Qin Ye and others be alarmed, I want to catch them alive." Qin Lu's eyes were a little helpless, but he could only agree to her and repeatedly told her to be careful. Until he hung up the phone, he lowered his eyes and looked at his injured leg, and a touch of cruelty flashed across his eyes. If he hadn't been injured, he could stay with the little girl and protect her. Instead of sitting in a wheelchair like now, anxiously waiting for her to come back. Wu Yu just brought him some information, and felt the terrifying low pressure in the room, and swallowed hard. He thought he could come later. Master Qin was full of gloomy and cruel aura, as if the god of death had come. Who made him angry again? The useless Wu Yu took back his leg as soon as he stepped in, and was very considerate to close the door of the room for their young master. As a result, as soon as he moved, Master Qin's eyes, which were extremely dark and dangerous, stared at him. "Wu Yu! Dare not to move, dare not move." He kept a posture, stood stiffly in place, and asked stutteringly, young master." Qin Lu restrained his anger, raised his hand and pinched his eyebrows, and said lightly, "Bring it here." "Yes." Feeling that the air pressure in the room was relieved a lot, Wu Yu breathed a sigh of relief. After taking the information in his hand quickly, he raised his hand and touched the cold sweat on his forehead that had just been shocked. 10 minutes later, Qin Lu finished reading the information and ordered indifferently, "Wu Yu, let Zhang Sen come to see me." Wu Yu seemed to have guessed what his young master wanted to do. His heart suddenly tightened and he lowered his head quickly, "I'll go and inform him now." Zhang Sen, like him, is the young master's special assistant. But the division of labor is completely different. He is an all-round assistant in public, helping the young master solve work and life problems. Zhang Sen has been secretly handling things that are inconvenient to be made public and cannot be put on the surface for the young master. Although he is the most familiar and the person who understands the young master best to the outside world, in fact, Zhang Sen is in contact with the real young master. Zhang Sen's importance is much higher than his. Of course, both of them are the young master's confidants and are absolutely loyal to him. Zhang Sen quickly came to the study. "Master Qin, what do you want?" Qin Lu's eyes were filled with a dark color, and he tapped the desk twice with his fingers. "Zhang Sen, go to Ilange and help me do a few things." Hashtag. Nan Yan returned to the courtyard. Qin Ye and his men followed the order and only protected everyone in the courtyard. Since the people hiding in the dark did not take action, they did not show up and did not alarm the snake. Seeing Nan Yan get out of the car, Qin Ye immediately reminded his men to focus all their attention and go all out to protect her safety. After Nan Yan got out of the car, she did not rush to knock on the door, but deliberately stood in front of the door, holding her mobile phone, as if she was checking something. In fact, she was watching the surveillance. The screen of her mobile phone showed the picture of this area. The people who had followed her before had already started to act after seeing her standing at the door. In the picture, they were getting closer and closer to her. When she was only 10 meters away, someone took out a tranquilizer gun and aimed at her. Nan Yan had never thought about being hit by this. She was not sure what was in the tranquilizer gun, and she was not interested in taking risks. With a seemingly casual movement, she naturally avoided the anesthetic needle. Damn, she actually dodged it. The person who secretly shot cursed angrily. The other looked at Nan Yan, who was standing alone at the door, sized up her small body, and waved his hand and said, "Okay, don't use the tranquilizer gun, let's go straight." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 359. Looking at the people surrounding her, Nanyan put away her phone carelessly. Nanyan put her hands in her coat pockets and asked in surprise, "Who are you? Why are you here? Who are you looking for?" She was sure that these people had nothing to do with the Divine Doctor sect and the Master sect. After all, the Master sect and the Divine Doctor sect would not find a group of foreigners to arrest her. But her identity was exposed. Foreign enemies came to her door so quickly. The leading man had a big beard and glared at her, saying fiercely, "Little girl, you'd better not resist, otherwise our fists will not show mercy. Be honest and follow us obediently." Nanyan frowned impatiently and said coldly, "Qin Ye, arrest him." Qin Ye, who was hiding in the dark, immediately rushed out with his men. The bearded man saw that they were surrounded, and his face was distorted. "You knew we were coming back to catch you, so you arranged people in advance." He was actually tricked by a little girl, which made him feel ashamed. He thought it was a simple kidnapping, but now their situation has become a little dangerous. Nanyan calmly took 2 steps back, leaned against the door, and ignored him. If she wanted to ask, it would not be too late to ask after they were captured. Fight them. The scene was in chaos, and the 2 sides fought. In the end, Qin Ye brought more people, and beat the foreigners to tears and finally surrendered. Nanyan walked up to the bearded man in the lead and asked coldly, "Who sent you?" The bearded man was still very tough, and he tilted his head and said nothing. Qin Ye volunteered, "Miss Nan, I'm good at forcing confessions. How about I do it?" "No need to bother." Nanyan took out a silver needle and slowly inserted a needle into an acupuncture point on the bearded man's body. "Ah! Ah!" The bearded man, who had been looking disdainful, suddenly screamed miserably. The men of Qin Ye who were holding him down from behind couldn't control him and had to let go. After letting go, the bearded man began to roll on the ground. The unbearable pain even made him raise his fist and hit the place where Nanyan had pierced with the silver needle to relieve the pain. However, this was useless and made him feel more pain. In the end, the pain was so unbearable that he knelt on the ground, crawled in front of Nanyan, and said with difficulty, I said, let me go. It hurt too much." He had never felt such pain before. From inside to outside, it seemed that every nerve and every cell was screaming in pain. The faces of the bearded man's men changed when they saw him like this. As if they felt the same pain, they were already grimacing, and their nerves were tense. Not to mention them, even Qin Ye and others felt a chill on their backs and cold air all over their bodies. Miss Nan's methods are so horrible. However, if such methods of forcing confessions are introduced, it seems that the efficiency of forcing confessions will be much higher in the future. "Help, I can't do it, please." The bearded man cried in front of Nanyan, and because of the pain, his whole body was constantly spasming and shaking. The cold sweat from his pores formed a small pool of water on the ground. Nanyan gave the bearded man a few more needles, and the severe pain like a maggot in the tarsal bone receded completely like a tide. If it weren't for the weakness and soreness after the severe pain, he would even think that it was just his illusion just now. Nanyan held the silver needle in her fingertips and turned it carelessly in front of him, asking again, "Who sent you?" It was Shishkin. The bearded man stared at the silver needle in her hand, not daring to hide anything, and directly confessed the person behind him. He swallowed hard, and before Nanyan asked again, he continued, "He asked us to come to China to capture you and bring you back to M country to hand you over to him. I don't know anything else. What I said is true. If you don't believe it, you can ask other people. Please, don't stab me, I really don't dare to do it." As soon as the bearded man finished speaking, several other foreigners immediately nodded hurriedly, indicating that what he said was true. After seeing the misery of the bearded man just now, None of them dared to offend Nan Yan again, for fear that they would also be stabbed with a needle. That would definitely be an experience worse than death. Nan Yan sneered coldly. She hadn't looked for Shishkin yet, but Shishkin was so impatient to ask someone to find her. However, she was a little curious, how did he know of her existence? Qin Ye waited until Nan Yan finished asking questions before he politely asked, "Miss Nan, what should we do with these people?" Nan Yan thought for a moment, "Lock them up first, I'll need them in the future." "Okay, I'll take these people away first, and when Miss Nan needs them, ask Mr. Qin for them." Nan Yan nodded, and Qin Ye led his men to take everyone away quickly. Qin Lu received the news after Nan Yan solved the problem. Knowing that everyone was arrested and Nan Yan was not injured, Qin Lu's worries were reduced a little. Hashtag. The people in the courtyard didn't know what was happening outside. The two elders of the Divine Doctor sect were standing outside the pharmacy stealthily, secretly watching the pharmacists brewing medicine inside. Elder A frowned and said, "Do we really want to do this? If you don't follow the Great Elder's order, it will definitely not work," Elder B said solemnly. "Besides, if Nan Yan really wins against Ji Yun Miao, the Miracle Doctor sect may change in the future. Do you really want Nan Yan to inherit the Miracle Doctor sect?" "Of course not. Judging from what Nan Yan said in the Divine Doctor sect today, it is obvious that if Nan Yan is allowed to become the successor and take charge of the Divine Doctor sect, the system of the Divine Doctor sect will probably change drastically. They have become accustomed to enjoying their current superior status and the vanity of being complimented by others. How can they throw away all this for nothing?" Elder A's originally hesitant thoughts became firm. The two elders watched the opportunity and watched the medicine boy who was brewing the medicine go out. One stayed outside to look out, while the other quickly entered the room and added something to the Chinese medicine being cooked. After doing all this, he put the lid back on and quickly came out. After walking a few steps, they met the medicine disciple who had returned. The two elders pretended to be casual and took a walk in the courtyard. The pharmacist greeted them, and the two of them nodded in agreement. After the pharmacist entered the pharmacy, they quickly returned to the room and reported the situation to the Great Elder. Hashtag. Qin family. Qin Lu saw Nan Yan's car coming back from the window, controlled the wheelchair, and went to pick her up. When Nan Yan parked the car and went upstairs, she happened to meet him face to face. Qin Lu leaned back on the wheelchair, with dark eyes, and stretched out his hand to her. "Yan Yan, come here." Qin Ye's little ancestor is a real boss. Author, Junanan. Chapter 360. Qin Lu leaned against the wheelchair with his back, his dark eyes sparkling, and he stretched out his hand to Nan Yan. "Yan Yan, come here." Nan Yan naturally handed over her hand and came to him. Qin Lu looked at the girl standing in front of him, with a layer of darkness and restraint in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" No. Nan Yan's face was hot when he looked at her, and she licked her lips unnaturally. "Brother, I'll push you back first." "Yeah." Qin Lu let go of her hand. When Nan Yan walked behind him, put her hands on the wheelchair handles, and when she was about to push him, Qin Lu naturally raised his hands to cover the back of her hands. Nan Yan lowered her eyes and looked at the hands of the two people together, and her heart moved slightly. It seems that after the incident with Elange, the relationship between the two of them has become much more obvious. Although they have not yet expressed their feelings can't deceive themselves. Neither of them spoke again until they returned upstairs. Nan Yan pushed Qin Lu to the sofa, and then squatted in front of him. "I'll check your leg injury for you," she whispered. Qin Lu lowered his eyes and looked at her tenderly. "Okay." Her soft little hands pressed on his legs, from his calves to his thighs, with a moderate force, which made him feel sore, but not painful. After the examination, Nan Yan's eyes were relaxed. After standing up, she said, "The bones are healing well. In a few days, you can slowly start rehabilitation training." Qin Lu could naturally feel the changes in his injuries because his legs were his own. If such a serious injury was treated in the ordinary way, he probably wouldn't be able to stand up in 3 or 4 months. But with the special medicine prepared by Nan Yan, he was able to walk in just 1 month. Qin Lu curled his lips and looked at his girl with gentle and deep eyes. Yan Yan, you've worked hard. What's so hard about this? Nan Yan sat on the sofa opposite him and raised her eyebrows lightly. It's just my job. She is a doctor herself, and curing diseases and saving lives is what she should do. What's more, this person is Qin Lu. The smile in Qin Lu's eyes deepened. The little girl is so cute and protective. How lucky it is to be regarded as one of her own. After a moment of silence, Qin Lu couldn't help asking her about the pursuer. Nan Yan hesitated for a moment, then lowered her eyes, not looking at Qin Lu's eyes, and said in a light voice, "It was sent by Shishkin." She was not sure whether Qin Lu had guessed her connection with the M country. Although she hadn't told him, last time, she took out the formula of the T-1 reagent, which had clearly exposed her identity. Qin Lu's expression suddenly became gloomy, and his strong and powerful hands even clenched slightly. However, the abnormality only lasted for a moment, and then his sexy thin lips curled up. Yan Yan, when you finish your work here, accompany your brother to the M country. The child was being targeted, which was already challenging his bottom line. Since the fox's tail has been exposed, it must be solved as soon as possible to solve the worries for the little guy. But some things must be done by her in person. And he only needs to ensure her safety. Nan Yan raised her head and met his eyes. Some things don't need to be explained, just eye contact is enough. She understood what Qin Lu meant. After a moment of silence, she nodded obediently. Yeah. Hashtag M country. Shishkin has been waiting for news. In order to catch Nan Yan, he spent a lot of money to find mercenaries. But they have been in China for more than 20 hours, and they haven't succeeded yet. Nan Yan in China, isn't she just an 18-year-old girl? Why did it take so much time? Shishkin was very uneasy. Ever since Holt brought the news about T-2 potion and Nan Yan, he has been uneasy. He must confirm whether there is any connection between the two Nan Yans, otherwise, he can't rest assured. While waiting, he has been checking various things related to Nan Yan. But Nan Yan had long erased all the information about her on the internet, and he didn't find anything. After searching the internet for a long time and finding nothing, Shishkin wanted to call the bearded man and his group. He dialed the phone but found that it could not be connected and no one answered. He called twice again, but no one answered. Shishkin's face became gloomy. Something must have happened. Since the mercenaries could not bring Nan Yan back, it would be fine to replace him with someone else. He sat on the desk, reached out to pick up the internal phone, and dialed a number. Not long after, a man knocked on the door and came in. "Director, are you looking for me? Go to Huaguojinchinj and find a family." "Yes, Director." Hashtag. The next day, Nan Yan got up and packed up, and went to Sun Chan to check on the 3 patients. When she felt the pulse of the first patient, her brows twisted slightly. Sun Chan saw her frown and felt that something was wrong. After taking the pulse of the second and third patients, Nan Yan's expression had become solemn. However, she didn't say anything, but calmly gave acupuncture to the 3 patients, and then came out with Sun Chan. The 2 elders of the Divine Doctor sect were afraid that Nan Yan would discover something, so they looked at each other and naturally followed. Just as she followed Nan Yan out of the patient's room, Nan Yan turned around and said with the same indifferent expression as usual, "2, my second master and I are going to Baiko Garden. I'll ask you 2 to take care of these 3 patients." Elder A said unhappily, "These are your patients, why do you let us see them?" Elder B also said seriously, "You are the one who is treating these patients. If you want others to do everything for you, can they still be considered your patients? Nan Yan looked at the two guys who were taking advantage of their age, curled his lips with interest, and said slowly, doctors treat diseases and save lives, and nurses boil medicine and take care of them. I don't think there is any conflict between them. Two elders, when you were treating patients, did you do it yourself throughout the whole process? The two elders were speechless by Nan Yan. They were just looking for trouble, thinking that they could suppress Nan Yan by saying these. As a result, Nan Yan didn't buy their tricks at all. Sun Chan looked at the two elders who were frustrated, and was a little angry, but he calmed down when he saw this. Then, he deliberately said to Nan Yan, Yan Yan, there is a medicine apprentice at home, so you don't need to trouble the elders of the divine doctor section, just let the medicine apprentice take care of the patient. Okay. Nan Yan responded lightly, without even looking at the two elders, and turned and walked out. Sun Chan followed slowly. The two elders looked at the backs of the two, and finally had to go back embarrassedly. After getting in the car and waiting for the car to drive away for a distance, Sun Chan asked in a deep voice, Yan Yan, is there any problem with the patient's condition? Yes. Nan Yan's voice was cold. It seems that the divine doctor sect is even worse than I thought.